G'day guys, today it's a diamond in the rough, Yianni Barthelmess. This guy comes in way under the radar, but absolutely delivered. Yianni gets out spearing 2-3 times a week, lives in the Sydney area. He's been spearfishing his whole life, absolutely loves foraging and growing things in his own garden. He's definitely got that cooking passion and partnered with a love for the ocean that most of us share as well. He's a fantastic guest, and I love today's episode. Check him out on Instagram at huntfishgrowcook. But if you're new here for the first time, welcome along. My name is Isaac, aka Shrek. I host this sucker, the Noob Spearo podcast. It's interviews with spearfishing experts, authorities, and characters from around the world. People just like you who froth on the spearfishing lifestyle. Today's episode with Yianni, an absolute blinder. noobspearo.com/Yianni for any of the links and stuff we chatted about today. Cooking is definitely a heavy topic throughout the show. Enjoy. Let me know what you think. You can always join the Noob Spearo community on Facebook or follow us on Instagram, also on YouTube as usual. Anyway, a couple of quick shout outs before we get there. Kurt from Homestead Restaurant on Norfolk Island reached out. He says, I need the right person to fill my chef job out here on Norfolk Island. I think someone who listens to the Noob Spearo podcast and someone who's in our community would be perfect. If you can think of someone who loves spearfishing, the ocean, gardening, and the island life, we could fully hook them up. Thanks, mate. Email me, Shrek at Noob Spearo, if you want to pursue or apply for this job out on Norfolk Island. I'll put you in touch with Kurt. So email me, Shrek at noobspearo.com for that. Maylene reached out, says, hey, Shrek and the Noob Spearo team, I've been listening to your podcast for a while now. I'm totally in love with it. Thank you for this work. I'd love to have a copy of the 99 Spearo Recipes cookbook, but I cannot find where I could purchase it. Are there still copies available, and would you also ship to the Canary Islands? Good news for Maylene, and I told her this as well. Go to noobspearo.com/99 recipes and get in line for one of the very first copies of the book. If you are registered here, you will be one of the very first to get your hands on a copy after the people that have contributed recipes and the people that backed our Kickstarter for the project, because we got up and this project's nearly ready to ship out the door. Beta readers are doing the job right now, going over the book with a fine-tooth comb. Make sure we don't have spelling mistakes, because old Shrek with his sausage fingers, you know how that goes. Anyway, also, if you want to leave a voice message for the Noob Spearo podcast, go to the noobspearo.com, head up into the menu, Noob Stories. You can leave up to 3-minute voice message. Short and sweet's great, though. Tell me about a scary story. Tell me about something you learned from the podcast. Whatever you like. I love to have a voice for the community. Go to noobspearo.com, up Noob Stories. Check that out. Mike McGuire, Freshwater Worlds, says, Freshwater World Spearfishing Championship is planned for June 2023. Stay up to date with that at freshwaterworlds.com. Fantastic event, great place to network and get out of your comfort zone, try something a little different, especially for us, mostly saltwater Spearos. It's a really cool thing. They knock out heaps of invasive fish and have a ball. As usual, when you get into a place with a bunch of Spearos, you talk a lot of rubbish and, we listen to the podcast. Mick reached out to me. He said, I listened to your latest episode with Chris the Deer, and I found it fascinating how progressive Canada is with First Nations involvement in promoting a hunter-gatherer lifestyle and the cultural ties to hunting and fishing. I'm a First Nations man for Western New South Wales, and I work in this field. And he says, I think there's a huge appetite for Australians to be open and involved in promoting the benefits of a lifestyle change of sorts. He says, despite the red tape and the confusing rules and regulations, he thinks there's a groundswell of action headed in this direction. And he loves listening to the podcast despite living 400 kilometers away from saltwater. So maybe Freshwater Worlds for you too, Mick. But fantastic email. I love getting the emails from listeners just like you who froth out on this podcast. Anyway, massive intro today, but super cool interview to follow. Let's get into it. Yianni Barthelmess. Here we go. Neptonics.com source the very best in spearing gear from around the planet. Jerry says, if we sell it, we believe in it, we trust it and dive it. Neptonics is the one-stop shop for all your spearfishing essentials. Neptonics is solid gear that works, and you'll know it's true when you pull the trigger on a Neptonics mech, on every snap of a Neptonics power band, and in every whiz of a Neptonics spear gun reel, singing with the power of another big fish. Buy gear you can depend on at neptonics.com. Use the code NOOB10 to save 10%. Adreno.com.au, the home of recipes, blogs, videos, equipment reviews, and an obnoxiously large range of spearfishing equipment for frothers like you. Not only that, but spearfishing trips and courses and trips that I sometimes get to go on. check them out at adreno.com.au. It's a Spearo's best friend. Check them out, and if you want to buy gear, pump in the code NoobSpearo to save $20 on every purchase over $200. You can use that online, in-store. Use the code NoobSpearo, save some cash, and support the Noob Spearo podcast. Shop with adreno.com.au. G'day, Noobers. Today I've got Yianni Barthelmess, and the pronunciation.
Spot on.
Oh, I got it right.
First shot. Well done.
How did I do that? Yianni has been a multiple contributor to 99 Spare Recipes, and he's sort of a guy that's flying under the radar a bit until I started seeing his recipes, and then I was like, I'm going to reach out and have a chat with this guy, and then I found his Instagram and his pizza reviews on YouTube, which we were just discussing, Yianni. So welcome along, mate. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, thanks. It's good to be here for a chat.
Yeah, cool. So a Shell Harbour, New South Wales Spearo. How long have you been at it? How old are you now?
43, just turned 43. Started when I was 7.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
So it's a family sport.
Yeah. My dad was really into it. I've got some of his old scuba gear still, like where he was making his own mouthpieces out of, tobacco tins and stuff like that back in the early days of scuba. And he grew up in the eastern suburbs and, spearing around Bear Island when you could do it and all of that sort of stuff. And then, as a kid, he'd take us down to Kiama or Cronulla. And, we grew up on the water and fishing and spearing and surfing and all that.
You're kind of spoiled. It's a beautiful part of the world. You grew up in Sydney though, and you've sort of made the move a little bit south. Is that right?
Yeah. Traveled around the world for the best part of my sort of 20s, and then was out at Ayers Rock. Actually met my wife working out at Ayers Rock, and we wanted somewhere to settle and moved down to the south coast. So very happy with the move. So
are you a chef by trade? Because I definitely picked through on you, like your level of professionalism when it comes to food and stuff like that. It's evident you've had a lot of experience working in and around food. Are you a chef by trade as well?
No.
Okay.
I manage food and beverage for a club group.
Okay.
So I've got a few chefs. We've got a big team of chefs working with us. But my family's been in food for a very long time. My grandfather owned a restaurant called Pruniers, which is in was in the eastern suburbs, where Matt Moran's restaurant is now.
Okay.
And our whole family's just always been in food. So,
what's your heritage? Greek. Okay. But I'm picking up like a number of different sort of takes on some of your recipes. Like you've submitted a Brazilian fish stew. There's urchin tostadas. You've got a spaghetti one there. There's charcoal grilled goatfish with kombu butter. And lobster tagliatelle, is it? It sounds Italian.
Lobster tagliatelle with the tomato cream.
Is that Italian?
Yeah. So I spent time in most of those areas and picked up different things sort of while traveling.
Oh, wow.
And as part of my job, it's important to sort of have a finger on the pulse of a lot of different trends and things like that. I also grow a huge amount of produce out of our gardens. We've got quite a lot of garden space, and we try to eat quite seasonally. And a lot of what I hunt for when I spear is something that's going to go with something that's ready in the garden. So if I've got some carrots ready to come out, I'll go for abalone because I want to do some abalone with a carrot puree or something like that. If I've got tomatoes fresh there, I'll go for some lobsters because I want to do the tomato cream for the tagliatelle with the lobsters.
This is following a trend that I think a lot of people were quite envious of. It's eating seasonally and eating locally. And if you can have a hand in the production of all of the sort of the ingredients, I think there's a massive grab here for a lot of Spearos.
I've seen a big shift in it as well.
Yeah, it's changing. I'm glad we're not at the front end because I think there's been people pushing in this direction for a long time, like Kimmy Werner and the Fin and Forage guys in California are great examples. There's what is it? Eat What You Kill in New Zealand, like they were doing this, a couple of years ago. But it's cool to kind of be there. So your Instagram handle is Hunt, Fish, Grow, Cook.
Yep.
So this is evidently you've been into this for a while.
Yeah, I mean, we grew up doing it. Our family was always around, that sort of catching and eating what you had, eating seasonally as much as possible. I think especially in the restaurant game, you keep your costs down by having seasonal menus. I think these days we're so acclimatized to being able to get tomatoes all year round, when we really shouldn't be able to get tomatoes in this area all year round.
Is this part of the problem? Like, I don't know much about restaurants or the food industry in general, but is it like, if you become a good restaurant, it's like you have that, there might be like 3 or 4 like super crowd favorites there.
Yeah.
And then some restaurants fall into the trap of trying to produce those dishes year round because it's what they're well known for.
Yeah, for sure. And not having the right cost controls around those items. If it needs to be expensive, then make it expensive. Values what's in front of you, cost is what you pay. And if it's perceived value and it lands in front of someone, they don't mind paying for it. So, I think restaurants that get a little bit confused with their direction and their identity are the ones that don't really last all that long.
How do you see the connection between seafood as we catch and prepare for our friends and families, and then the commercial seafood restaurant reality, particularly on the east coast of Australia? Why is there such a disconnection between awesome local species that taste sensational and what we see on the menu?
Oh, that's a big one. There's the legislation, which needs to be there definitely, around what we can actually catch and cook. Restaurants actually, as much as we'd like to buy locally down here, most of our seafood does come from up north. When you see the market floor lately, the fish markets have had nothing on the floors for the past, 4 or 5 months.
Why is that?
The weather. The weather's had a big part to do with it.
Yeah. But I've heard, and this is purely anecdotal, so like 100% slay me if I'm completely ignorant. Some people talk about like when we have particularly like rainy seasons, and we seem to be in the grip of a La Nina cycle down here at the moment.
Yep.
And we've been getting oodles and oodles of rain, like floods in some parts, particularly probably a bit further north of where you are. And Queensland, we had our ones particularly in the southeast corner, but up north they've had it everywhere along.
We've copped our year total in 4 weeks.
Yeah, well, okay. So, but some people say that like for some fish stocks, those huge volumes of rain can be actually quite good for getting a bigger or a larger yield out of like the spawn seasons.
100%. And I think we're already seeing it. We saw through that drought period. I had a conversation with someone this morning about this. Through that drought period, we saw great viz down here, but it was quite barren. And a lot of those fish that we were seeing, I suppose, 10, 15 years ago in close, we weren't getting them in close. We were having to go, throw the boat in and go wide and hit sort of some unfished reefs and stuff like that to get to a lot of that ground. Ever since we've had this volume of rain, and even in the last couple of weeks, I've noticed it. I mean, I saw a marlin free jumping off the tip of Bass Point in 30 meters of water the other day. First jump, I went, oh, that's a dolphin. Second jump, I went, that dolphin's got a pointy nose. And third jump, I'm like, oh, it's a marlin.
That stirs your heart seeing stuff like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, and just the volume of fish that we're getting and the volume of bait fish that have moved in close because of all that runoff is fantastic. And we've just got to put up with some poor viz,
So again, just circling back to the question, because I circled you away from it and we went off on a pleasant sort of subtract there with the disconnect between like local species and again the restaurants. Is it a supply issue as much as it is anything else?
Yeah, it's also consumer led. A lot of consumers don't really understand. It's up to us as an industry to gradually bring them on board, and people like Josh Nyland and those superstars of the industry really do help propagate that, because it starts at that top end of the industry. Even that vegan push at the moment is starting at that top end of the industry. So Josh will help push that through. But stuff like leather jackets, we're only just able to start selling those in restaurants because people just wouldn't eat them. Stuff like bonito and having bonito as sashimi. So many older people just saw that as a junk fish, bait, all that sort of stuff, and you couldn't put it on the menu before. Mac tuna, same sort of thing. And we're starting to see that push from the top end of town flowing into the mid-range and low-range restaurants.
Do you think with bonito and the mac tuna, it's like there are fish that need to be bled and iced fairly quickly, if I'm not wrong. And
Absolutely.
possibly some of the older fishing practices, maybe that wasn't happening. So, I mean, if you don't bleed those fish and they drown or whatever, they probably are pretty junk to eat, I'd imagine.
Yeah, they are. They're terrible. And I mean, a lot of, again, from the top end of town, it is lead, but they're getting their fish from people like Chris Bolton, who's all hand line caught, brain spiked, and iced straight away. And a lot of his fish he's getting to market within 24 hours, and he's getting a lot of the reef fish from up in North Queensland, coral trout, emperor, stuff like that. But restaurants are advertising it as such on their menu, line caught, brain spiked, and it's educating customers to the benefits of that. So, and I see nothing but good things.
Brain spike sounds so primitive. I can see why we swapped it out for the Japanese expression, even though I can't even say it properly. And people correct me all the time, and then I just default to the first way.
Is it not Ikejime?
Ikejime, I think, or something.
Wow.
I can't even remember, honestly.
There you
someone's corrected me, and then I've taken to it for 10 minutes, and then my goldfish brain has just reverted to its defaults. But so we'll circle back and we'll chat more about cooking if you like. So 7 years old, you're sort of in this eastern suburbs area. Your dad's scuba gear. What were you like jumping in summertime, just following him around on the surface? What did that look like?
Yeah, no, he just handed me a hand spear, and we'd just chase around different things. He always carried a flasher with him, just a piece of PVC pipe wrapped in reflective tape. We speared a lot of squid as a kid. He'd just throw the flasher out there, and to this day, I'll still carry a flasher with me every dive and throw it in over the grassy areas on the way back in. And
he must have been one of the first people to do that.
I don't know. He may have been. He just always had one. There was always a flasher clipped to his belt.
It's funny. Like, I mean, I think even in spearfishing, we don't even realize the origins of some of the things we do. It'd be interesting to have a chat with him, see where he got the idea from.
Yeah, it'd be hard. He passed away a couple of years ago. So
okay, I'm sorry.
That's
sorry for
okay.
your loss.
I don't know. He was a bit of an inventor. He invented a few. He invented a microwave pool heater and patented that. And
oh wow,
he was always down tinkering with different things and breaking more things than I think he fixed. But
Australia and New Zealand, I think maybe due to our roots and being relatively young countries, there's this innovative vein that runs through a lot of the people, particularly sort of first, second generation people down here. And that's awesome to hear. Sounds like he really handed on a love and an appreciation for the ocean. So you were down there in that New South Wales area, then you've travelled the world. Did you take spearfishing with you?
Yeah, I did. I actually went to uni in Townsville and studied marine biology at uni in Townsville. And we did a lot of spearfishing up on the reef as part of that. I worked in the Whitsundays for a spell on charter boats and taking people spearfishing and fishing and diving around there.
Oh, wow.
And worked on Orpheus. Probably one of the best islands I worked on was Orpheus Island up in the Palm Island group, about 100 k's north of Townsville there. And that place is the lost world when it comes to fishing.
Yeah.
It's untouched. There's just, it's, everything from marlin to Spanish mackerel to tuna to all the reef species, all the crays, everything. It's just untouched up there.
How long were you up there for?
I was on Orpheus for about 8 months. So a hard place to live.
Yeah, I'd imagine. That disconnect, I think it's very appealing for a little while, but I'd imagine after some time with family, it depends on when you did it too, like telecommunications might not have been very good at the time. Yeah,
I wasn't that long. It was 2007, or 2007. And it was fine. It was just, as a single man and only 14 staff on the island and unable to get off the island for 8 months at a time. It was
cabin fever.
Yeah, it was tough. So,
yeah. But you would have got to see nearly a full season. So what kind of things did you start to pick up on being a relative newcomer and then experiencing 8 months in that area and sort of what sort of stood out to you, or what did you start to learn and observe about the environment you were diving in?
The viz was a big factor up there. I mean, being close to Hinchinbrook Island, you were always quite wary for crocs and stuff like that. We had a croc turn up on the beach one morning that we had to get rid of before the guests woke up because,
bad for business.
Well, it's $5,000 per person per night. Like that resort's, incredibly exclusive, they couldn't see a crocodile on the beach. So we had to bundle that up and take it back across to Hinchinbrook and let it go.
Oh, wow.
But the diving there, everything's got teeth. We had influxes of sharks. If we speared in one location sort of more than 3 days in a row, then we definitely saw a big increase in the amount of bull sharks and tigers. There was more tigers in that region than I've seen anywhere else now or since.
Okay.
So that was concerning.
So 3 days of sustained spearing, you're starting to see this learned behaviour.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any idea on how long it takes to fade out again, and then you get there?
No, we're pretty lucky. I mean, it's a big island group. We never really had to sort of hit an area too often. It was more chasing schools of tuna or chasing mackerel, or there was a lot of big schools of Spaniards up there, which was always good fun. And then learning where the different holes for trout, because there was a lot of trout up there as well.
And did you find, is it like a lot of the Great Barrier? Well, I don't know. I've only done Southern Great Barrier, so I don't know. So I'm definitely not an authority on this. But sometimes I've swum for 600-700 meters, and for my American friends, about a third of a mile, and you're not really seeing too much going on, even with trout. And then all of a sudden, you hit a bommy, and it's just loaded.
Absolutely.
And then every fish you shoot, it's like 2 more appear. And then sometimes you get 20 or 25 on one bommy.
Yep. But I find that in a lot of spaces. I find that down here, learning this area, like not having grown up down here and learning this area, there are definite aggregation zones. And be it current or be it the bottom contours or the bottom makeup or whatever the case may be, you do find these aggregation zones of fish, and, you start hunting those more often and being quite successful because they do replenish in those aggregation zones, I find.
Were you ever guilty of sustained diving in areas where there's really not too much going on, like, in terms of indications like bait species and, just that, like sometimes when you swim over a spot and you can see an aggregation of bait, and then you see 2 other or 3 other species, and then you think, this is the spot I'm going to dive on. You spend some time trying to get some sustained drops on it. But sometimes, and this is from my experience, I've spent a long time diving unproductive areas when I should have just been swimming looking for a productive area.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You might find a spot that looks productive, and you start hitting it over and over and over again and using a large part of your dive. And then, you swim 40 meters away and you realize that that's where you should have been the whole time. So
it's funny, like when things from economics, like opportunity cost is something that I think about more as I get older.
Yep.
And I think spearfishing, you get your 50 drops if you're lucky to get like a full day of spearing, or maybe you get more, whatever. If you spend those 50 drops in unproductive areas, then you're lowering your opportunity. You're not, it's just not going to be there. Whereas if you focus your efforts in and around these clear points of aggregations, then you're going to get a lot more opportunity.
These days, it's a lot different for me as well. Back then it was all about, trying to find a trophy fish or specific species, to cook in the restaurants for guests or something like that. Whereas I find these days, I'll hunt the aggregation zones because I want to feed my family, and I might have a certain time period that I can really get out, or a target species to cook with something from the garden. And
Do you think this is why guys with finite time windows and guys that dive comps are probably a lot more efficient at finding fish and getting some wins on the board?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Those days I find I'm far more successful. If I go out and just, I know I need to get, some runs on the board, if I've got nothing in the fridge, stuff like that, 9 times out of 10, I'm successful. As long as I'm relaxed before I get in the water. If I'm too on edge when I get in the water, then I think fish know it. They can definitely feel it. You hit the bottom and everything just runs away.
Do you have some rules of thumb for spearing, or some anecdotal truths that you tend to live by? For example, one of the ones was, and I think we've been talking about it, is you don't leave fish to find fish. So if you've got an aggregation, spend time on it.
Yep.
Don't, have a good time exploring it before you bug out and go and try and find something else. Do you have any of those that you sort of these heuristics, if you like, that you dive by?
Yeah, I mean, one big one for me is get to the bottom. I just don't stop. Just bomb to the bottom, hit the bottom, and then start hunting once you're on the bottom. That alone for me, anyone that's come spearing with me or people that I've taught over time, that increases their success rate immeasurably. And I think it's partially being relaxed when you hit the bottom, and that moment of actually just calming down, and fish will turn around and come towards you. Fish are naturally inquisitive.
Yeah, 100%. What about though? A lot of guys, and since you've trained a few, like you're taking out a guy. He's like happy in 30 feet, and then, but he, like the temptation always is for guys to kind of dive on the edge of what they feel quite competent at. So he might be diving in 40 feet with you, pushing it just a little bit because he's there with an experienced diver. How do you coach them through it? Do you just make them spend more time on the surface and be conservative, or?
No, I generally won't. If I'm with new divers or people that I'm unsure of their experience levels, we won't go deep. We'll stay in 10 meters of water max and get comfortable together. Learn each other's idiosyncrasies and the way they look when they're coming up, when they're comfortable. So you can see when they're coming up, when they're not comfortable later on. And then we start moving deeper. So, but I'm a naturally skeptical person of other people's skill levels, and I don't want to see anyone injured.
Yeah, there's that age-old temptation though. Like off Brisbane here, like so much of our diving's deep.
Is it?
And dealing with current. Yeah, we don't have a lot of shallow spots, in large part because they've shut down like a lot of the bay, and the bay's mud bottom, so often it's dirty here. So with new guys, you get this gap where there's these new people that are like I started, like broke and just hard up, want to get in the water. And then so you're starting off the shore and you're flat out diving, 6-8 meters and finding, if you get 5 meters of you're having a really good day.
Yeah, right.
So then you want to get on boats with other guys. And this is a problem for the broke guys like I was. I couldn't go out and just buy a $20,000 boat and start heading out. Plus I didn't have the expertise either. I knew nothing really about boats or running a boat. So you're jumping on boats with experienced guys that like to dive 40, 50 feet plus,
Yep.
And so there's that gap. And it's just, how do you approach it gradually? I think probably with some of the area you're in, a lot of it's shore diving. There's heaps of good accessible shore down there. And if you're heading out in boats, you could probably still manage your depth
absolutely
as well. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I've got a great boat because I like line fishing as well. We'll go off the shelf line fishing, but if we find a big school of tuna or a big school of dolphin fish, we'll jump in on that and shoot those as well. So we've got the best of everything. But if I'm short for time, we've got some of the best shore diving around, just along here, and you can get everything, I speared yesterday in 3 meters of water and came home with a couple of brim and a couple of ludrick, and that's nice. A good feed.
Yeah, 100%. So it sounds like you haven't lost your passion for some of the inshore stuff as well, because some guys do that. They go up the food chain and they never come back and they never re-explore sort of the roots of it all.
No, I love it. I mean, this time of year, brim is just one of my all-time favorite fish this time of year. They're just full of fat. You can actually scoop the fat out and cook the brim in its own fat. And that is just, for me, that's one of the best things. My son loves it. I got a 6-year-old and he's more excited about eating, raw brim than he is about McDonald's, and that's fantastic. So
walk us through that dive day. Like, you don't have to give us your spot, but what time? When did you get out there, and how long? Yeah, just walk us through what sort of happened on just a regular 3 meter day shore diving.
Yeah, no, I jumped out of work at about 3. I was in the water by 3:30. We've got a couple of decent spots. It was blowing southerly. We've got some really good spots that are protected in the southerly, and there wasn't a lot of swell getting in. It was more a reconnaissance dive to see how the viz was coming up, because the viz down here lately with all of that rain, I jumped in 6 days ago and I couldn't see the tip of my spear.
Yeah, I've heard that.
So it was more just having a look at how it was going to be for this weekend than anything else. And I jumped in and it was about that 2.5, 3 meter viz. So not great, but in
hunting viz.
Yeah, good. Yeah, great hunting viz. And in shallow water, it's okay. And I know this spot quite well. So I was actually able to sort of hunt around some ledges and, dive down, spend a lot of time on the bottom, throw some sand, I know that around one of the corners, there's always a big aggregate. It's an aggregation site. Yeah. And I know there's always a big school of Ludric and some thumping brim hanging in behind those. So I dropped down into that, lined up, took a shot, and got a really good sized Ludric on that first drop. And then there's a gap in the rocks with a little ledge, and the swell pushes over it. But if you can pop over the other side, there's actually a really big hole on the other side that's some really thumping brim. They look like snapper. They've almost got that bump on the head and blue tinge to them. And I came over that ledge, and there was one sitting right behind there. So I popped that one off and found another brim on the way on the swim back in. And, I was home by 4:30. Yeah, nice. An hour in the water just floating around.
Hey, those dives, they can be incredibly rewarding. You're just jumping out there for a feed and just enjoying yourself. I mean, part of it's just getting out and getting your face in the water and get nothing like holding your breath and just getting on the bottom. It's just fun. It doesn't matter if you're in 3 meters with 2 meters viz or whether you're in 20 meters with 50 meters viz. It's still all fun.
And I appreciate it more and more over time. I think, as a younger guy, I found the calmness of it, was really important. It had calmed me down. It had relaxed me in a way that nothing else did. I was, getting that depth and the pressure felt like just bringing a big warm safety blanket over myself. And I always felt that. And it was just another way to be in the water, surfing, kite surfing, diving, all of it, was always a passion. And then as I've gotten older and just with the kids and things like that these days, it's still that mental, focus point.
Have you looked much into the physiology going on when you experience some of those sensations? Like you talked about being younger and maybe a bit more energetic and, sorry to be rude. It's not like you're old now, but
no.
Like you bounce around a lot more. And sometimes I think a lot of us young men, it's the testosterone and that it's
Absolutely.
Almost like we have an ADHD and it can be really calming for that as you get older. But have you looked into the physiological drivers behind some of these things you're talking about?
No, not at all. And it'd be an interesting thing to sort of look into because I definitely, it's something I want to instill in my son because it was a great release for me, It wasn't the go to the pub and, have a fight and all that sort of stuff because you were pretty chilled out after a day of diving. Who had the energy for it,
It's like practical meditation for active people, eh?
100%. 100%. And it is. It's like a meditation because you're focused on your breathing. You've got to stay calm. You're surrounded by, all of those things, and you've got that singular focus. It's a meditation for sure.
Getting back to those heuristics, those rules you live by, we got into one of them and then I interrupted you and we headed off into the weeds again. You talked about making sure that people get to the bottom before they start hunting. I think that's fantastic. Have you got any other rules of thumb?
Not really, to be honest. That's probably, I think, no, just taking your time, not rushing around the next corner, not trying to beat someone around the next corner. Every single ledge you come up over, there's probably going to be a fish, and treating it like you're hunting on land. You're not just going to bust around a corner and because there might be a herd of deer sitting on the other side of it. You come around that corner with purpose because you never know. You might have, a thumping big brim on the other side of it, or up over that ledge, there might be some big kingfish or something like that. So, just hunting with purpose. Every drop, hunt with purpose.
Great news, guys. Adam Stern has made his freedivingfamily.com courses available at a discount for the Noob Spearo community. If you get on freedivingfamily.com, use the code Spearo, you'll get 20% off any course. There's a bunch of sick courses on there. There's an equalizing stage 1. There's an equalizing advanced techniques video there. They're two of my absolute favorites. If you have any problems with equalizing, go to freedivingfamily.com. Get Adam's course and use the code Spearo to get 20% off any course. Check it out at freedivingfamily.com. I just love a functional and simple spear gun that I can trust when I pull the trigger. Killshot Spear Guns utilize the finest of kiln-dried Burmese teak. Killshot Spear Guns also combine American-made parts and fine craftsmanship to bring you accurate, reliable, and simple spear guns that you can trust. Fish after fish. Get $30 off any Killshot Spear Gun at killshotspearguns.com. Yes and amen, Noober. That's $30 off American-made performance spear guns.
at killshotspearguns.com. I'm really sorry for this terrible accent. Brought to you by Ed Martin at killshotspearguns.com.
In the world of freedive spearfishing, there's no magic breathing technique that's all of a sudden going to get you down and shoot massive fish at depth and holding big bottom times, but there is a way to do it safer and smarter, take down more fuel to maximize the time that you have there. Learn at noobspearo.com/TED with Ted Hardy from Immersion Freediving. If you take down more fuel, you can stay for longer. Learning to take a bigger breath is not such a big deal. Ted breaks it down for you with a free online course, noobspearo.com/TED. Take down 20 to 30% more air just by learning how to take a full breath. Again, learn how to do it free at noobspearo.com/TED. So you've been spearing like 30 years plus. Do you have an identified process for the way you sort of log and catalog and learn from, your experience as you go, or is it very much just something that you just relax into?
No, it's just something I relax into. If anything, starting to put some things onto Instagram over the last year. The original purpose of it was to actually log what was in season in my garden and what I was catching seasonally in the water. I've tried to keep logbooks in the past, and I just haven't had the discipline to keep a logbook. We lost a lot of recipes when my father passed away. We still argue about, lasagna recipes and things like that over what he put in it. And I see the Instagram page as much as anything as a digital ghost for my children, that, if anything was to happen to me or whatever, there's recipes there and there's a history there of the things that they've eaten and I've cooked for them.
It's a tough one, isn't it, social media? Because it's like you want that balance between like, I don't know, like I got stuck in self-promotion or even the promotion of this podcast, like using social media purely for that. Because, you make something, you want other people to experience it as well. But when your motives become a little bit more pure, I think, and you're doing something like what you're doing, it can be even more fun. I'm looking through your Instagram right now, by the way. So if people want to check it out, Hunt, Fish, Grow, Cook. And I like the sort of the blend. You've got, I can see okra there. You've got dragon fruit. Is that dragon fruit?
Yeah. First year that one's flowered. So
beautiful. And like it's just a good, like it's a someone that eats and tries to live off the land. I think there's a lot of inspiration in it, so it's cool.
Oh, thank you. I mean, there's probably a big lean towards raw seafood at the moment in there.
Yeah.
Because I've had a bit of I've seen a lot of dishes while I've been researching different menus lately. All over the past probably year, I've seen a lot of recipes and the raw side of it's really appealed to me. And with my son loving raw seafood probably more than cooked at the moment, it's a little bit of just wanting to produce stuff that he likes eating.
It's interesting we talk about raw. We've got quite a good raw section in the cookbook, as you're aware.
Yeah.
And a number of sort of chefs that we've invited to come in, and because like my pitch to the chefs was like, I think becoming a chef a lot of the time is about sort of learning these small skills, and over time you get this compound effect of just hundreds of these skills that you don't even remember learning, but you just have them. And anyway, I asked them for some of their tips for the cookbook, and some of them are a little bit gun shy because of perceived legal action with regards to food warnings and stuff around raw fish. There's a lot of fear and paranoia, and lawsuits maybe in different parts of the world lend towards this fear. I guess with social media, you don't have to worry about that.
No, not at all. I mean, I'll always promote looking after your catch. I think as spear fishermen, we look after our catch better than anyone. You're brain spiking, you're bleeding them. You're generally only hunting for what you need if you're an ethical spear fisherman, I guess. It's selective.
Are there any food safety precautions that you recommend to people when they are going the raw route?
I always make sure that specific fish have different dangers. I wouldn't eat mahi raw towards the end of the season. I mean, knowing what you're eating. Towards the end of the season, I think mahi, in my experience and what I've read in different papers, they'll eat a lot of puffer fish and a lot of toadfish towards the end of the season, and that can actually accumulate in the flesh and make you quite sick if you eat dolphin fish raw, whereas that toxin's killed with heat.
Okay.
So I generally don't eat dolphin fish raw, mahi raw, just because I don't want to risk it.
Yep.
And that's just a personal thing. I know a lot of people do, but I have heard of a lot of people being sick from it. Whereas there are other fish like, kingfish, unless there's visible parasites, visible worms or something like that in the flesh, I've never heard of anyone, being ill from eating fresh kingfish. Bonito, great fast-growing fish. Never heard of anyone being sick from eating raw bonito. The brims, snapper, brim.
Yeah, loud and clear. I think so. Knowing your environment, knowing the species, and having a good think about what is safe and possibly what's not. With you mentioned yellowtail kingfish before. There's some people say there's a parasite or a worm that they get at some ends of the season, particularly up here in the southeast. I'd love to hear it if you get it down there in south of Sydney, where basically like you cook kingy and it goes mushy. Have you ever heard of this? And what is your sort of understanding of it?
Yeah. No, there's I think it was a bacterial parasite from what I was reading. And we do get that towards the end of the season. It doesn't seem to affect the flesh raw, and it's non-transmittable to humans as a pathogen, but it definitely affects them. We'll quite often cook up just a little slice of kingfish, especially this time of year, to see if it's affected or not, because visually you can't tell. Yeah,
that's what I've heard. There's no real telltales until you cook it, and then until you cook it.
Yeah, and then it just turns to mush, and it's very disappointing when you when you put in all that effort for a nice big king.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a. I love shooting them, eh? Like I love eating them.
Me
I like
too.
them smoked, kingy, like fantastic fight in the water.
Yep.
The
way they look when they come in.
Yeah, sometimes they're wary too. Like maybe you have a couple of days of diving them and then you see them, but they just don't come near you.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden you're in them and then they're all dumb. And you could shoot a couple if you wanted to, but it's still special. I love it.
Yeah, every time I see them, I get so excited every time I see them, and they are a trophy fish in every aspect. Amazing on the plate. The wings are, by far and away just one of my favorite fish. I actually saw someone the other day cook them. They crumbed them and had them with like sour cream and fermented chili. And that just looked incredible. That was the beach at Byron Bay, little restaurant up there, and that looked amazing.
Sideline, fermented chili. How would you go about that? So you pick them from your garden? Ooh.
Yeah. Pick them from your garden, and
grind them up.
Well, I'd grind some and leave some quite chunky.
Okay.
And then put them in vinegar solution.
Yep.
And then just leave them to ferment.
In your cupboard, no sun?
Yeah, cover them and leave them to ferment.
Is that pretty much how you do a lot of vegetables?
I don't. I don't do a lot of fermentation. I probably just don't trust myself in the process enough.
Yeah. People buy fermentation setups, don't they? Like they have all the jugs and stuff in the containers that have got the right level of air inflow and
100%.
Sort of stuff.
And I think you've got to be into it. And got to go down that path to sort of understand the science behind it.
I wondered if you needed a culture though, like you do with some of the other stuff.
I don't think you do.
Yeah, right.
I don't think you do. Mm-hmm. That'd be an interesting. Again, interesting to do more on.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy to eat the stuff. Sometimes the effort that goes into preparing, I'm just I love it when you do it, and I'll appreciate it. But be nice to have time for everything. Again, it comes down to that opportunity cost thing, I think.
Yeah, I like a lot of simple flavors as well. Like a lot of what we grow 6 or 7 different types of beans because, I like the taste of every single bean's got a different taste and a different flavor profile, and I'll match with, that's one of the reasons I'll go hunting for different fish because I want to match that fish with the flavor profile of one of the vegetables or something coming from the garden.
So what does your garden look like?
It's not huge. It's there's 7 different garden beds.
Okay.
That just get rotated through the season. They're all around the 3.5 meters long by 1.5 meters wide.
And you got 7 of those.
Yeah, so it's a reasonable amount of space.
Yeah. I was thinking, yeah, sweet, my 2 like little garden beds that my wife tends to. That sounds good.
But we can eat from the garden for 5 months of the year without really having to go to the shops to buy any vegetables.
That's fantastic.
So it requires a little bit of planning, but yeah, it's nice when you can go out and shoot fish and go to the garden and harvest everything from the garden and feed your family from that.
You've got yourself. Yeah. With gardens and stuff, it's something I'm starting to toy around with. I love eating out of the garden. Again, it's just one of those practicalities and sort of work-life balance things. Is it kind of like you've just got to start somewhere with something small?
Yeah, 100%. Start with something easy. Radishes. If you're ever doing raw fish, radishes are amazing with raw fish. Every single sashimi dish, you can do pickled radish, you can do grated radish. And radishes are like from planting them as a seed to harvesting them is about 4 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So great for the kids. They get some, pretty quick gratification out of growing it, right through to, garlic. Garlic's 6-7 months in the ground. We'll plant it now and we won't pull it out until until November, December.
Okay, wow. Soil seems to be critical for obviously for gardens. What's your thought and process?
Yeah, my soil's soil's everything. Be a soil farmer before an actual farmer. I spend a lot of time on my soil. Every year I redo a whole heap of soil. I'll actually get a whole heap of seaweed from down the beach, and we've got a lake right out in front of us.
Like bull kelp or something.
Yeah, I'll get some bull kelp from down the beach, or some brackenweed.
Okay.
Crayweed. And then I'll get some ribbonweed from the lake, and I throw that on the lawn with a couple of bags of horse poo and a couple of bags of chicken poo, and get the lawnmower and run the lawnmower backwards and forwards over it and chops it all up together. And then put that in the garden, and 3 weeks later, the acidity comes down a little bit because it's quite acidic when you first get it going. But that's my soil for the start of every new season.
Righto.
I bury all my fish frames, anything that I haven't minced up to use for burley. A lot of that fish frames go in the garden.
So how are you rotating? I mean, do the garden beds, do you rotate the ones sort of lying fallow, or like what's that sort of process?
I don't have enough space to let one go. So I hammer them pretty hard, but that replenishment of nutrients from the seaweed and all of that poo has served me pretty good. I save seeds from the garden stuff that's actually done really well in that location. So it's sort of hyper local produce that's done well. So if I get one bean plant that's produced, 10 kilos of beans from one bean plant, then I'm saving the seeds from that plant and replanting those.
Yeah, nice.
But yeah, it's a good foil to, and the filleting table's out in the middle of the garden, so I can just stand in the garden.
Big stainless bench?
Yeah, big stainless kitchen bench.
Did you make that yourself? Did you pick it up? Like, it's something I've been curious about wanting to buy for myself too. Like, you look at old butcher shops closing down, but pretty expensive.
Yeah, no, we've refurbished so many kitchens so often that we've always got spares that we're throwing
guys
out.
Can email you and then you'll source them.
Listen, I'll put it up on there every time I've got one.
Man,
I'm sure people will put their hands up for them.
I will take one. I'm coming down your way too, probably late June. So
unreal.
I don't know how I'm going to get it home though, but we won't hold our breath for that. But so you got this garden going. You sort of got this delightful process of matching seasonal vegetables with catching appropriate seasonal fish. I guess the other question I had with regards to the garden, and sorry if we're getting bogged down in this, but because it's a spearfishing podcast, not a gardening one, but I'm curious for scratching my own itch here, if you like, Yianni.
That's okay.
The pests are another massive issue. So, like, you hear about guys like getting real clever, like planting different things in that ward off insects and stuff, and most of us are trying to steer clear of like chemicals and toxins and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's inevitable if we're isn't it? I'd love to hear what you think.
Yeah, pests are inevitable. But at the same time, I sacrifice a little bit of my garden every year. We're going to get a little influx of pests, but then nature has got a good way of balancing itself out. So, if I get a whole heap of aphids, then a whole heap of ladybugs turn up a couple of weeks later, and I might lose a little bit of growth, but the ladybugs are actually going to balance it out. They're going to eat a whole heap of aphids. if any of the infestations on anything get too bad, then a little spray bottle with some crushed up chili.
Oh, yeah.
And anything with like soft skin, any little caterpillars or anything like that, you spray them with a bit of chili water and they're not coming back, and that's perfectly fine for your garden. And then a little bit of companion planting. I've got a couple of roses planted in there. I always plant a lot of marigolds. There's always marigolds around the place, which help. Tomatoes always have basil all around them. Just those little easy companion plants that go along with it all.
So this is like basic permaculture type stuff.
Yeah.
Is that what we're talking?
Yeah, really, really simple permaculture stuff.
I've had a guy, he's like a big brother to me. He introduced me to some of these concepts and we did discuss them, but I just haven't put any of it into practice, I'll be honest. Give me an example of a companion plant and how it works.
So what would be a good one? Well, the rose is a great one. The roses attract the aphids away from any of the other plants. Okay. The roses, the aphids will hang out on the leaves far more than of the roses and the new growth on the roses, far more than they'll eat anything else.
We just lost a couple of broccoli plants in our garden.
Yep.
Anything for them?
Yeah, cover them. Any of the brassicas. They're one of the hardest things to keep pests away from because you get the cabbage moths.
Yeah.
And my kids will chase cabbage moths all over the yard. And you can put you can actually make a little cabbage moth out of a piece of milk carton.
Okay.
Because they won't actually come into an area where there's another cabbage moth already there. So you can plant those around your garden and they'll generally stay away. But other than going down every day and squishing every single caterpillar that you see, a net, is probably the simplest solution to, stopping anything eating your brassicas. And that's the same kale, cabbages, any of those leafier things that they like to get into.
Equalising problems can be something that derail you. Not today, my friend. Go to freedivingfamily.com. Check out either the Frenzel and Advanced Frenzel video or the Mouthful and Deep Frenzel Equalisation course at freedivingfamily.com. You can use the code Spearo to get 20% off any course at freedivingfamily.com. These courses are put together by Adam Stern and a select team of legends, and to help you overcome different issues and help you perform better. And some of them are extremely relevant for freedive spearing. Check it out at freedivingfamily.com. Use the code Spearo to get 20% off any course.
Shrek, my dude, you're killing it on the Noob Spearo podcast. Every guest you get on froths on the spearing life, and the actionable info is off the chain. Over here at Spearing Magazine HQ, it's the same, buddy. So many noobers are submitting their adventures, lessons learned, and pictures here at spearingmagazine.com. Just wanted to say that noobers can get an international subscription here at spearingmagazine.com. They can also check out our In the Face apparel or getting a subscription to the world's greatest spearing magazine. Check it out at spearingmagazine.com. Shrek, thanks. Love what you're doing. Jeremy out.
Walk us through one of your recipes. Southern Crow spaghetti and bacon and tomato cream. Can you remember offhand how you'd make that?
Ooh, not offhand. I could probably do is there the lobster spanna coppita in there?
I don't think I have it mentioned, but run us through it. That's good.
Yeah, so the lobster spanna coppita came about because it was just wanting to do something a bit different with lobster. And I had a whole heap of silverbeet in the garden, an excess of silverbeet in the garden. So it was just simply just cooking the lobster, boiling the lobster for the set amount of time for the size, not really wanting to overdo it, and then hitting it in the ice bath straight away.
That's a really good point too. Can you just explain how long you want to boil them for, the parboiling sort of process, and how you've sort of worked it out over time?
Oh man, generally for me it's eyeballing it these days.
Yeah.
If it's almost a kilo lobster, like that one in the recipe was, I think, 800 grams.
So we're talking 2 pound lobster,
2 pounder,
which is pretty standard. Yep.
That was 8 minutes in the boiling water.
Yep.
So probably not enough to overcook it.
Yep.
And then shocking it in ice water straight away.
That stops that cooking process.
Yeah, stop the cooking process. And then taking that out, roughly chopping it into sort of 1.5 centimeter chunks. And then with the silver beet, taking the thick stems out of the silver beet, keep those aside. You can make a really nice gratin out of that later. So not to waste the stems, but taking the leaves, and you need way more than you think you're going to need. You need a real big bunch because, you start to break down any of that sort of spinach or silver beet, and it ends up as a smaller amount. So, yeah, with that, it was just, chopping it, wilts, really. But chopping it all up, chucking it in a hot pan with a little bit of olive oil, big squeeze of lemon juice over the top, lemon zest, nutmeg, and then taking it out, getting in a colander and squeezing as much moisture out of it as you possibly can.
Okay.
That's pretty key. It stops you getting a really soggy base when you wrap it in the filo.
Okay.
So and even when you think you've gotten enough water out of it, walk away, leave it for a couple of minutes, come back and keep on squeezing. And then get it on a board, roughly chop your silver beet again. Yep. Just gets it a bit more sort of rough chopped for like a nicer mouthfeel.
Yep.
And then some more lemon zest, some more nutmeg, and fold your ricotta, a fair bit of ricotta through it. I can't remember the exact amount that I had in there.
Yeah, you're right. Broad strokes is fine. We're all experimenters after all.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. I think it was about 500 grams of ricotta actually, and then fold your lobster through it. Get your sheet of filo.
Yep.
And line your dish with the filo, and then instead of actually putting a layer of filo over the top, just grab sheets and scrunch it on top.
Okay.
And a little bit of butter, chuck it in the oven until that filo goes, nice and toasty and brown. And it's, the most decadent Spanna coppity you've ever eaten.
Oh, wow. That sounds phenomenal. And a good variation for people that are, I mean, you can get sick of lobster, definitely.
Yeah.
Like, as delicious as it is, I mean, it's first world problem 101, isn't it? Like, it's like, oh no, I'm sick of my lobster. What a horrible existence you must have.
You start handing them out to neighbours and stuff towards the end of the season.
Yeah. Some people are paying bloody $100 a kilo for them or something like that. And here we are complaining that we're getting bored with them. But this is the Spearo life sometimes. We sometimes are a bit too spoilt with how much seafood we actually get. And that's what lends to part of the idea of $4.99 Spearo recipes, and maybe this appealed to you. It was that idea that just because we have an abundant resource and we're able to tap into it at all times doesn't mean we have to keep shooting, tastier and tastier and rarer fish just so that we can make the same 3 dishes that we know how to make.
100%. That's the one thing that really drew me to it, was, there are going to be recipes in there for every fish that people thought was a junk fish. We made tacos the other day out of Sergeant Baker, and people would normally think that was a junk fish, but you've just got to take the time to take the pinbones out, and it's a delicious fish if it's like that, same as I was talking about with the leather jackets, and I think the more we can get away from eating those, I suppose, trophy fish, snapper and flathead and tuna and things like that, the more sustainable we are.
Just spread our efforts, I think, as part of it. I was saying to someone, like, it's like sometimes you become a better Spearo but a shitter cook, because it's like you can shoot like super tender, super tasty fish.
Yeah.
And just hunt exclusively for those instead of doing what we did at the start, which is shooting pretty much anything that looks legal. So
I'll probably get kicked out of the restaurant game for saying it, but I love Ludric.
Yep.
Blackfish are delicious.
Yeah.
And they're also, if once you know how to shoot them, there's idiosyncrasies to learning how to shoot Ludric well. They'll turn. If you're on the same level as they are, they'll drop a pectoral fin on the side that they're going to turn. Like they'll turn straight at you and look straight at you, and just before they turn, the pectoral fin that on the direction they're turning will drop, so you can actually lead the shot.
Yep.
And I love shooting them. Love shooting them, love eating them. My kids love eating them. We eat a lot of Ludric from that.
I think the blackfish are subject to that old problem where we bring the fish home and gut them in our kitchen sink.
Oh, 100%. You got to gut them out there. They're disgusting.
Yeah. And they're another fish. Like if you don't bleed them and brain them straight away, they're not great.
No, same as Australian salmon. They probably fall in that same vein. If you don't bleed them and gut them straight away, and they've probably been left in a bucket with the flathead and the brim and all of that sort of stuff to die, they're not going to taste as good as flathead and brim.
Yeah.
You know, but over the coals, Australian salmon done over the coals and just with, as an open taco, that's fantastic.
Do you think another problem with them is probably overcooking?
Yeah, absolutely. I think any fish, the problem's overcooking.
This is the problem though. See, I talked to you earlier about those people paranoid about the dangers of raw fish and they want all these, they want protection from lawsuits and stuff. Even on any local level, a lot of people are paranoid about it. They put it in the same box as like chicken or pork.
Yeah, and it's really not.
Nah, it's not. I found it remarkably forgiving. I'm a heathen when it comes to food hygiene. I'll smash it up and eat it, maybe I've been blessed with a, I don't know, like
iron guts,
a tough constitution or something. Yeah. I did live in China for a year after all. I don't know. It seems like paranoia to me a little bit.
I think the simplest thing is just having a metal probe.
Yeah.
To stop yourself from overcooking it or know exactly when your fish is ready.
I might try and link one up in today's show notes.
Yeah. So
I'll do it in, if people go to noobspearo.com/Yianni, Yianni, because we should all learn how to say Yianni. I'll link up this probe you're talking about. So just common household, like
just a meat skewer, just a metal meat skewer.
Yeah.
And then just insert it into the fish while it's cooking, when you think it's close to ready, probably a little bit before you think it's close to ready. And if you pull it out and put it just on the bottom of your lip, just underneath your lip.
Yeah.
If it's warm, then the fish is done. Take the fish off and it's ready to eat.
Yeah.
If it's still cool, then the fish isn't cooked. And if it's hot, then your fish is overcooked.
Yeah.
And it's just that's the simplest way to do it. And you'll see chefs from every level, right up to fine dining, Michelin starred chefs. You'll see them cooking that way and testing their fish in that way.
So they're not even using a meat thermometer. They're just using like a metal skewer, like you're talking about. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well, you learn something every day.
Yeah, and it's low tech, it's low-fi, and it's just the easiest 100%. Way to do it. And
you can get them anywhere. You can get them in any you can get them in any supermarket or anything like that. So.
Yeah, most top drawers have a metal skewer of some sort in there.
Are you big into smoking fish?
No. I've got a meat smoker at work. We've got a big reverse offset smoker on a trailer.
Is that the Smoke and Wilbur?
It is. It is.
Yeah. What are you doing there? You're setting up a trailer smoker and serving people?
Yeah. We take it to festivals and we take it to we do it for functions and events and stuff like that. And we also it was great during lockdown as a way of staying in touch with our staff and our teams and some of our customers. We actually had it in the car park at one of the clubs twice a week, and we just fire it up, and I'd be shaking margaritas and slinging brisket burgers. So,
damn.
Yeah.
As good as smoked brisket is, smoked fish is also.
Smoked fish is on another level.
It's so simple too. Like once you get going, you're just like, why haven't I been doing this forever?
Yeah, I mean, smoked kingfish wings, or even smoked snapper wings.
Smoked Spanish mackerel is amazing.
See, we don't get mackerel down here, so Spanish mackerel down here.
Yeah.
But what's it called? Slimy mackerel. Smoked slimy mackerel is just fantastic, and often thought of as just a straight up junk fish, but that's an amazing fish smoked.
So you've kind of got these two very specific areas of passion to spearfishing, like. I'm sensing a massive food draw, massive lifestyle food draw, but then you've got the relaxation and that active meditative sort of passion that we have for the sport as well. What else draws you to spearfishing?
I love the ocean. I mean, that's why I did marine biology at uni. I still read up on, all the papers that come out and a lot of the research papers. A lot of the stuff around aquaculture still fascinates me. And that's a little bit from an industry base, from a kitchen base, seeing what's coming through, but also reading up about different things. I'll jump in the water if whales are going past. I love, getting in the water and having a swim around with them when they're cruising past. I'll still nerd out. If a big eagle ray comes past, I'll just sit on the bottom and watch that. Or if I see some shrimp just, outside of a cave, I'll still sit out the front of that and, see the beauty in that. We are so blessed to have a sport that not only combines, providing for your family and eating and that side of things with some of the most amazing natural beauty and seeing if you see an aggregation of mobula rays going past, like these are the things that no one else on the planet, like think of how many people on the planet have sat in the water and seen that. There'd be no one, like it'd be under 1% of people that would have ever seen that.
Those mobula rays, I watched a really neat video. I think her name is Nadia something on Instagram. She's got below the water and drone footage of a school of orca.
I saw that.
Smashing a school of them.
Oh, man.
How cool was that, eh?
Oh, that was amazing. Have you been in the water with an orca before?
No, I haven't.
Well, I had one swim past off Bendalong down on the south coast once. And I was just hunting in and around the rocks and turned around and there's a pair of them.
Holy moly.
Just sitting behind me.
They'd be code brown. They're so big.
Man. So like just, how normally you can, you get a sense that there's something big near. No, had none of that.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah, well.
Nothing. I literally turned around and 3 meters behind me, not swimming, just looking straight at me and just sat there and they just cruised past real slow. Whew. Yeah.
I guess that's how they do what they do. Like they're able to shut down that sort of that thing that triggers our senses because that must be how sometimes they just seem to predate on seals and sea lions so easily.
So easy. Absolutely. Or great whites. You see them predating on great whites and wiping out whole areas of great whites. I mean,
don't they just eat the liver or something on the great whites?
They do. Yeah. They just split them and eat the liver. I had a lecturer at uni who was studying all of that and just, he said that sharks would just disappear out of areas. They were tracking one and its friend, or one of the other sharks in the area got eaten by a couple of orcas and that one just went for the bottom and reappeared in New Zealand. It was just...
Yeah. The natural world's just amazing at times and that would be a special moment to have two of them right behind you like that.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. But we have, like you think about all of those different moments, even the moments we have, like the scariest stuff when you've got sharks bombing in on you or something like that, just there, we've got some incredible moments.
Tell us about one where you maybe learned a few things.
Probably spearing solo during lockdown, as we're not meant to do, but tend to do sometimes.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah. And I'd been on a fairly deep drop, not deep, but just like comfortable deep, maybe 15, 16 meters. Shot a really good snapper. And I'm swimming back to the surface, and in my head, I've already started working out how I'm going to cook it. I was going to do a ceviche with some of it. I was going to do some, the wings on it were going to be smoked, And halfway to the surface, I feel a tug, and look down, and there's a really good size, let's call it 14-foot tiger.
Oy.
Thumping away on it, and that's then come up and had a real good look at me. Needed a bit of a shove with the gun. Reloaded, and I'm by myself, probably 200 meters offshore, and started swimming in, very cautiously looking around and keeping an eye out. And a decent bonito swam past. So, I couldn't see the shark anymore, so I shot the fish. And as you do, and I strung that on the line, and I started swimming, and feeling pretty happy. I had something else on the line, could still do my ceviche. And then I felt a tug on the line, turned around expecting to see the shark, and there's a seal now ripping into my fish.
Bonito. Oh.
So I got into shallow waters, shot a ludrick, and went home.
So, like shore diving and sharks, I find that a lot more intimidating than I do boat diving with sharks. Is that your take on it?
100%. I've had more, I suppose, intense experiences shore diving with sharks. I mean, we were at a fairly popular spot getting crazed last winter and came out of a hole, and there was a big bull shark sitting right behind us. And when they get to a certain length, they stop getting long and they start getting thick.
Yeah.
This was a thickie. And it snapped, and just, they go from being calm to being aggressive very quickly. And I bent my spear, having to jam that one away. That swam us right back up onto the rocks, and we had to sort of, come up around the cliffs to get away from that.
Jeepers.
Yeah, that was a bit of a sketchy one.
Not like Bruce and Finding Nemo at all.
No, nowhere near as friendly as that. But then other times you're quite happy to see them swimming around, and they keep their distance and they're quite wary. And we saw that a lot up on the reef. You'd see a lot of bull sharks up there, and they're quite wary, and everyone knows what's going on. Whereas a boat dive, if you see a few sharks, you just get back in the boat.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So,
I mean, takeaways for people, like, you tell someone you go spearfishing, the number one question I get is, "Oh, what about sharks?" What's your advice for new divers with sharks?
I suppose the best advice is, I don't think the blood attracts the sharks. I think the movement of the fish and the Lorenzini ampules at the front of the shark's nose picks up electrical pulses. That's one of their main tools for sensing when an animal's in distress. And when we shoot a fish right along that lateral line, they're sending out those signals. So the sooner you can brain spike a fish and stop that movement. I mean, everyone's seen it. You shoot a cobia off the back of a bull shark. If you brain it, and stone it in that first shot, the bull shark's not even turning around half the time. Whereas if you don't hit it properly, it's going nuts. So I think the quicker you can dispatch your fish, the better. We've got a really nice aggregation site up here of grey nurses. And so quite often with new divers, I'll actually take them out there first. And we'll go for a little dive, we'll swim around, we'll see some grey nurses, and it gets rid of that initial fear of seeing a large fish in the wild, because that's the initial fear, isn't it?
100%.
Seeing a big fish like that in the wild.
Yeah.
I think we're less likely to have encounters like that poor swimmer off Malabar sometimes, because we're a lot more slow and methodical about what we're doing. We're not kicking along the surface in a hurry to get somewhere, swimming along. It's a little bit more slow and methodical. We're a little bit more aware of our surroundings. And I think that limits those sort of interactions.
Mate, I saw footage of that bloke off Malabar. It's funny you should bring it up. Like, that was horrific,
isn't it?
Like, that shark that wasn't a taste and go.
No.
That shark ate that bloke.
Yep.
Like, it proper ate him alive. It came back and finished the job. The guy was dead within, it would have been fast, but
hopefully, yeah.
But jeepers, it was horrific to watch. Like, as someone that goes in the ocean all the time, I looked at it and I was just like, I was dumbfounded.
A couple of moments to pause, wasn't it? Of wow, like the speed as well and the fury of that was phenomenal.
Mm. Yeah, it puts a real check in you. It makes you just. I don't think we get cocky, and like most of us have been in the water a while. You can't ever get cocky around sharks.
God no.
But that bloke got proper eaten alive. Like it wasn't. It was like there's some urban legends around now that sharks don't eat people. They just don't know what you are, and they taste you, and then they let go and they go. No, that shark bit him, knew exactly what he was, came back and smashed him, ate him alive.
100%. And I think what we do get complacent with as well is the speed.
Mm.
We get complacent because we see sharks swimming, at a leisurely pace around us when they're not in hunting mode.
Mm.
The speed of a shark when it really wants to attack, and especially a white of that size, you're not stopping it.
Nah, and they, it's like a car that's able to turn like a forklift.
Yep.
But at the same speed as a car.
Yeah.
And you can't respond fast enough in the water.
One thing that stopped me blue water spearing a few years, a fair while ago, in my mid-20s, we were going out for tuna quite often. And we'd shot a decent tuna, probably an 80-kilo yellowfin tuna off the shelf. And a friend and I were probably 5 meters away from each other. We both put a shot in it, a good holding shot, and we're swimming back to the surface. And we're a couple of meters below the surface, and a mako, thumping big mako, one of the biggest makos I've ever seen, just came straight up vertical and hit that fish. and full breach, hit the water and swam away. And we were left with maybe 10 kilos left of this 80 kilo fish.
Holy moly. This is another thing about mako. People think they're like skinny and long and cute.
No.
And it's like, you watch a couple of videos of Riley Elliott and you think, oh, that's amazing. I've seen them like 5 meter long.
Yeah,
and
that's what this was. This was just, and the guy on the boat, our boatie's like, oh, did you see that mako breach? We're like, did we see it? I was looking down and I didn't, it was like lightning.
Yeah.
And that thing took that fish in half.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, you've always got in your head, probably the delusion that you could, turn your gun in time or get a flipper in the way or palm it out of the way or something. Nah. If they're coming at you that fast, you've already made a big mistake.
So you identified a few things before, and I think, while we can't do everything to stop being eaten, like the percentage chance of being taken can be reduced by doing a few and adopting a few types of behaviors. Can you go through them again?
I think just being calm, and being aware of your surroundings is a huge part of it. I think what I didn't mention before was time of day and location.
Yep.
If you're out at dawn, in those low light situations, the crepuscular periods.
Ooh, a bit of marine biology.
Yeah, because sharks are crepuscular hunters. They've got the nictitating membrane on the inside of the eye, which actually reuses available light.
So that amplifies the remaining light, so they see far better than us at those periods of 100%. Minimal light.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you're at a river mouth at dawn, your likelihood of bumping into something with teeth is probably a little bit higher,
Yeah.
So I think brain spiking your fish, stopping that agitation in the water as quickly as possible, having a float line and keeping those fish as far away from you as possible is really important so you can reduce your risk in a lot of different ways.
Confidence, like before you talked about like exposing some newer divers to grey nurse sharks when they're in a relatively sedate state, because let's be honest, they have another state just like all sharks do.
They definitely do.
But a gradual exposure in as controlled an environment as you can, because I've exposed someone in a bad way while we're burleying, and that bloke sold all the gear and never got back in the water again.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah, and that was just dusky whalers, but 3 of them coming up in a Sharknado from the bottom up a burley trail is a pretty intimidating experience.
Yeah, brown shorts experience.
Yeah. So gradual exposure. I think the other thing that we did talk about was having a boat and a competent boatie that recognizes when you're in distress or when you need picking up fast.
Yeah, when you're screaming through your snorkel.
Yeah. It's not gonna if a mako or a great white or something like that comes at you full noise, unbeknownst to you, and they can be unpredictable, there's very little you can do.
There is very little you can do. I think, like you were saying, that confidence in the water thing, so much of the shark's behavior is going to be dependent on your behavior in the water. If you act like food, they're going to see you, and as much as possible, if you act like, because you throw our fins on as well, we're quite a big animal in the water.
Yeah.
So if you're acting confident in the water, that's actually got a huge amount to do with it.
Yeah, it's good points. Yeah. Wow. A nice heavy topic, particularly coupled with that footage that we've seen of that poor man.
That was horrific. I got sent that footage without any warning about what it was or what I was looking at. Yeah. So I'm sort of halfway through until I realized what I was actually looking at, and man, that was hard to watch.
Yeah. 100%. As a person that spends time in the water, and I think most Spearos love it when they see people in the water, using the water, doing stuff.
Absolutely.
Because there's a whole segment of our population, even here in Australia, where we're fancied as a water-going, water-loving nation. There's a whole segment of the population that are terrified of getting in the water, and experiences like that, they definitely shape culture and people's perspective. I think in Sydney, they've seen more full sets of gear for sale since that's happened than ever before.
Yeah, I think anyone that was on that verge of not getting in the water or just beginning and starting out and being scared of sharks, like you were saying, I think that was probably the little nudge they needed to get out of the sport.
Yeah. Then there's suckers like you and me that'll never let go.
No, they're there. You see them.
Yeah, 100%.
It's the benefits far outweigh the risks, I think. And you think about how many times you've been in the water, how many times you've actually, seen sharks or had an experience. I'll dive 3 to 4 times a week.
I love seeing them too, I'll be honest.
Me too.
Most of the time.
Oh, favourite animal. Absolute.
I don't like it when I'm in certain circumstances though. If my heckles start to rise, I want to move because I'm not there to. I don't need to prove anything or do anything. Like I'm quite happy to move or whatever. But like I've seen bull sharks 3 or 4 sequential dives in a row, diving a 30 foot sort of reef in current, and so it's following you.
Yeah,
and it's approaching from different angles, and you're in 15 feet of viz. That's an intimidating prospect, particularly when they get to that sort of size you're talking about. That 2.5, 3 meters where they start to turn on the girth. They're a scary animal, particularly in low viz conditions.
Well, you're not that much, like size wise. They're looking at you going, "Oh, that's not that much bigger."
I was trying all my tricks. I was dropping my guts. I was pissing in my wetsuit. I was doing everything I could, but he just wanted to hang around me.
Oh, that's frightening.
I don't think any of that works, by the way. So don't do that. Don't listen to me. But a nice, delicate segue as usual. Funny stuff, Yianni. You had some good times out in the water. Have you got good mates, good funny bastards you like to hang out with?
I do. I've got a core group of people I like to dive with. All low ego, I think, is important. That ability to actually, like you were saying, to pull the pin if needed. Move on from an area or just, see the fun in it instead of actually sort of going for trophy fish over the sake of safety, I think is really good and important to have with your friends. And everything, like one of my favorite dive buddies is one of my cousins, Colin. And, we were over on the island that our family comes from in Greece, diving over there. It's called Castellorizo, sort of down south of Rhodes near Turkey. And both of us, diving along there, and it was great to see where our family was from. And, the viz is 40 meters plus and not a lot of fish, as you know, in sort of those parts of the Mediterranean. But we're cruising along and I'd seen these sort of oyster clams along the rocks. And Colin was talking about, we should eat some, like we should get some and take them back. And we get out of the water at the end of the dive and he's like, "Oh man, I saw all these clams, but, they'd all been opened and I didn't actually get any." I was swimming along ahead of him, eating them.
So you gave him a barren dive feel.
Yeah, he was pretty dirty about that. Everything, like that was great. Even, working up in the Whitsundays, I'd do the dive briefing for all of the British tourists before they jump in the water. I'd tell them that, those there's a red, blue and yellow fish in there. The government needs, that's like a drop bear, but the government needs to sort of, needs us to do this spiel. No one's seen them in years, but they're highly venomous. They're highly aggressive, We've never seen them in this area, but you've got to just watch out. By law, we've got to tell you about them. And they'd jump in the water and you'd throw a big handful of fish food and all the blue and yellow fusiliers would come up and you'd just hear the screams from every single British tourist. Never not funny.
Australia must have a reputation all around the world for doing gags like that. It's like favourite trip there.
Yeah, 100%. Fresh meat every 3 days. So that was great, Yeah.
They call it hazing in other countries. Here we just call it like everyday life, don't we?
You got to have fun, don't you?
100%. Love it. Do you like to penetrate? Great news. Penetrator Fins, today's Noob Spearo podcast sponsor, are tough as nails. Robust, dependable performance with beyond industry standard warranty. Communicate direct with Larry and his team 24/7 for all your fin inquiries at penetratorfins.com or at penetratorfins on Instagram. Baby spum finish. These things are smooth as silk. They glide through the water. They give you that awesome balance between power and efficiency. This is Penetrator Fins. Use the code at Noob Spearo to save $25 on any pair of Penetrator Fins at penetratorfins.com. That's right, use the code Noob Spearo to save $25 on any pair of Penetrator Fins at penetratorfins.com. Kill fish with precision and power
Sending shafts from a stable platform with Killshot spear guns. Made in the Florida Keys by Ed Martin. You're buying American-made, dependable spear guns. Get $30 off any Killshot spear gun at killshotspearguns.com. Yes and amen, Noob. That's $30 off American-made performance spear guns at killshotspearguns.com. It says if they're in the shop or on the phone, they can cash in by saying, "Crikey, mate," or the Noob Spearo podcast sent me. Check them out at killshotspearguns.com, based in the Florida Keys.
Yianni, we are coming down to the back end of the interview. I love to chat with guys about what's in their dive bag. You're south of Sydney, so you're dealing with pretty cold water in the winter. Are you diving all year round?
Yeah. 3 to 4 times a week, year round. So
I'm envious. All right, like Brisbane diving is phenomenal, but just access sometimes is the issue, eh?
Yeah.
So good on you, man. 3-4 times. All right. So what's in your gear bag? What are you wearing?
What's in my gear bag? Summertime, it's like a 2 mil full suit, just to protect from stingers and stuff like that. We do get a few stingers.
What's the water temp in summer?
This year it's been hotter than I've ever seen. You know, this year it was pushing in 24 degrees in close. 25.5 off the fads.
Wow.
So for down here, that's pretty warm. And normally it's around that 21, 22 degrees in close. So winter can get down around the 16s, 14 if we get a real cold current come through.
So you're in a 5 mil?
5 mil, yeah. Yeah, got a 5 mil Cressy for that. I run a number of different guns. I've got my standard's just a Rob Allen Sparrowed, 110.
Yeah, beautiful.
You just can't beat them. They're bulletproof. They just
keep going.
They do, and you can shoot everything. Everything from a nice big king right the way through all your species. It's such a variable, like a good varied gun.
Mm-hmm.
I make my own guns, so I got a couple of timber guns that I've made myself, and I run those as well.
You just made composite type ones?
No, routed them out and like a
single piece of timber.
Yeah, single piece of timber or laminated actually.
Oh yeah, laminated, yeah.
Laminated teak.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Nice.
And they're great. A lot of work goes into them. You look at it and think, 100%.
Yeah.
It's not going to take that long, and they take a lot longer than what you think, but there's nothing better than shooting a fish with a gun you've made with your own hands.
Yeah, it's a little bit like putting a meal in front of your family where nothing has come from something that you didn't catch or grow or yourself.
Yeah. But I think, I dive with the Rob Allen Cubera mask.
Yep.
Love that thing. Again, just fits my face. Nice and comfy. Fins, if it's a shore diver, the old Cressy Garras.
Oh, yeah. Nice plastics. They're great.
Plastics, bulletproof. Don't worry about scratching them, kicking them, anything like that. And just a set of medium divers for boat diving.
Fiberglass or
fiberglass, yeah.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, nice.
And then always with a flasher, and I think that's just, bred into me from my dad. And as much for squid as for anything else. I find I get more squid with, just tossing a flasher around. It just brings them in. So, yeah.
They can't resist that flash a lot. I've never done it actually, but I have seen my mate James in Melbourne made a phenomenal video about spearfishing Melbourne, and he's got a massive section in there about hunting squid. And it's cool learning about them. And again, another incredibly underwatched, amazing video that's on YouTube. It's like in the spearfishing YouTube space, there's so many awesome videos that just don't get picked up. And maybe thumbnails and headlines can be improved and all the rest of it, but there's some algorithmic skullduggery at play, I have a feeling, and I really dislike it because there's parts of our spearfishing culture that I just don't think is seen enough. And but anyway, our Southern Spearfishing on YouTube for those that are interested in that. Cool. Was that it for equipment?
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, cool.
Pretty much. It's just I'm pretty basic. To be honest, when all that sort of stuff's said and done, I've got a roller gun. I don't really use it for anything other than when we're offshore for tuna or for mahi.
Do you have an adjustment when you switch between guns?
Oh, not really.
Okay.
Not really. They're all pretty well sighted in and pretty well used. So
nice.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Let's get through this fast-paced round of questions at Spearo Q&A. Are you ready?
Yep.
All right, cool. What is the single best piece of advice you've ever been given for spearfishing?
Get to the bottom.
Who has been the most influential person or people in your spearfishing?
My old man, for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Sounds like an awesome bloke.
Yeah.
If you had to start all over again, would you do anything differently?
Not a thing. Not a thing.
2 more questions. What is the spearfishing destination you'd most like to go to?
Oh, a spearfishing destination. Ascension Island.
Big yellowfin?
Big yellowfin, sickles, hardening off and almost touching the tail like those. Yeah.
It's an amazing visual, those.
And just the place as well, like the history and the location and all of that. Just, that'd be an incredible place to go.
I don't know much about it, but I should ask some of the blokes that are running the charter out of there.
Yeah.
All right, last question, Yianni. Could you describe what the spearfishing experience means to you in 1 sentence?
The spearfishing experience for me is just a part of my life. It's just a part of my everyday week and a part of the way I feed my family.
Love it. Yianni, awesome. I've had a blast, man. If people are curious, and I would encourage them to do so, you've got an awesome Instagram that I've only recently started following, I think this morning actually. I wasn't even aware of it. It's Hunt, Fish, Grow, Cook. But you've got heaps of cool stuff in here. Like, as you said earlier, like seasonal produce and fish. There's no ego here. It's about what you're putting on your plates for your family. And I like it, man.
Yeah, cheers. Appreciate it.
Is there anywhere else people can come and have a look at any of your stuff or connect with you?
No, just on just basically Instagram, the occasional YouTube video for a catch and cook.
Yeah, cool.
And
is that
Hunt,
Fish, Grow, Cook on YouTube as well? Okay,
yep.
Cool. All right, awesome.
Yep, there's a few catch and cooks on there already, so yeah.
Cool. Well, if guys forget any of that, go to noobspearo.com/Yianni, Yianni, because we need to learn how to say it. But mate,
appreciate it.
Thanks for jumping on the podcast today. Thanks for your input into the book. I think you've got at least half a dozen recipes that have made it into the book. So you're going to get 6 copies. Hopefully June, we're going to say July. It's like, you do these crowdfunded things and you have very ambitious timelines. And just the reality of a project, as you're aware, being a businessman, like these things do push out, but you want to just do it right. So it's looking
absolutely
friggin' cool though. So
I think, with the market the way it is and with people the way they are and the appetite for these sort of things, I think the book's going to do really well.
Yeah, cheers.
I can't wait.
Awesome. All good, Yianni. Well, enjoy the rest of your day, brother.
You too. Speak soon.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. It was brought to you by legends just like you, but people who support the podcast on an episode-by-episode basis at patreon.com/Noob And I just want to thank all the legends that have left reviews for the podcast, told their mates about it. You guys are the ones that keep this show growing. And we've had more than 1 million downloads now, and it's just from people just like you listening in and tuning in. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. I love making this show, and it's brought to you by patron listeners just like you. If you wanted to find out anything about today's episode, go to noobspearo.com/Yianni, Yianni, and all the socials will be linked up there. Fantastic interview. Had a mad yarn with him. I don't know who we got in 2 weeks. I have had some scheduling dramas trying to get over another Canadian, actually. I'm really looking forward to bringing her to you, but we just haven't made it happen yet. I'm hoping it's so, but I don't want to spruik it just in case the stars don't align. But anyway, thanks for listening to today's show. As usual, if you want to get in touch with me, Shrek at Noob Spearo. If you want an early copy of 99 Spearo recipes, go to noobspearo.com/99 Spearo recipes. Love yous. Catch ya. Today's episode was an absolute banger, and so is our major sponsor, Adreno. Visit them at adreno.com.au. They have a huge range of equipment. You can find it at adreno.com.au. Use the code NoobSpearo at checkout. When you shop online, you can save $20 on every purchase over $200. You can even use that code in-store at some of their huge mega stores Australia-wide. Price beat guarantee on any Australian spearfishing equipment price. Again, visit them at adreno.com.au. Use the code NoobSpearo. The Noob Spearo podcast is incredibly proud to be partnering with Neptonics.com. It's solid gear that works, equipment you can rely on. It's the very best in spearing gear from around the planet. Neptonics is also the one-stop shop for all your spearfishing gear, particularly in the US. They got free shipping on all orders over $99 in the US. Furthermore, you can use the code NOOB10 to save 10% off on your entire shopping basket at Neptonics.com. Use the code NoobSpearo at Neptonics.com.